Well, let's talk a little bit about this. This morning, an op-ed in the New York Times warning parents to pay attention as education takes center stage in the Republican midterm agenda. They're going to capitalize on it.
The op-ed arguing for 30 years, polls have showed that Americans trusted Democrats over Republicans to strengthen our schools. Within the past year, however, Republicans have closed the gap. Voters who feel looked down on by elites are now finding common cause and an alliance that could not only cost Democrats the midterm elections, but also fundamentally realign U.S. politics. Brian?
Fox and Friends Weekend co-host Will Cain joins us right now. Hey, Will, a lot of people underplaying education. That was for the off-year elections. You think it's going to be a midterm election? Big deal?
I think it's going to be a big deal for elections here into the foreseeable future, Brian, not just midterms, but for presidential elections as well, acknowledging the limits that the federal government has over our local education, although they wield quite a bit of influence and persuasion. Look at what's going on. Look at school board meetings. Talk to anybody in your local community. When I go out here in Dallas, Texas, and talk to friends, education is one of the main things they want to discuss. Now, I have school-age children. I have middle school and elementary-age children, but everybody is concerned about whether or not their children are being taught what is, in their correct estimation, a racist ideology, whether or not they're having racism forced down their throat, whether or not gender ideology and sexual ideology is being forced down the throat of kindergartners through third graders, as is being fought against in the state of Florida. Look, there are certain things in politics I think you should never, ever mess with, and at the top of that list has to be people's children. Don't mess with my kids. If you do, you don't just lose me for an election, you lose me for all elections.
Sure. It's interesting you should mention that that's the one topic that so many parents want to talk about. My kids are out of school, but I talked to my next door neighbor for a half an hour yesterday about our middle school in our town. You know, Will, in the midterm, what we saw last year in Virginia was essentially the Democrats were the party of the union, but it seemed like the Republicans were the party of the parent. And that's why the New York Times says, hey, pay attention to this.
Yeah, advising their own readers to not take education for granted despite decades of support on the education front. And by the way, we shouldn't overlook the fact that that same party has embraced an ideology that punished our children unnecessarily, unscientifically when it came to COVID. I have children, Steve, that have had their sports canceled for the better part of 2 years. They're in New York City. They've been forced to mask until very recently. And by the way, they're the last holdouts on who had to mask. Every other element of society has been allowed to move on, but not the children. So the children have been punished. And there's one more element to this. Look, there was an idea that I think actually spanned both Democratic and Republican Party, and that was that the way to succeed in this country was through education, and that education's job was to give you the tools through calculus or through history to navigate our society to become more productive, more wealthy, more grounded member of this society. But that's changed. Now calculus has become less important or infused with, for example, race ideology. So the Democratic Party has moved education from the tools of merit to the tools of social activism. They're not trying to create, citizenry who is ready to go out into society and create that next great company. They're trying to create children who are ready to take to the streets and change the fundamental nature of what they see as a very flawed country. And I don't think parents want that. Parents want children who have the tools to succeed, not the tools to change elections.
Yeah, well, we saw in Virginia when Glenn Youngkin won that America really is waking up. And like you said, the mama bears and the papa bears are saying, don't mess with my baby bear, because that's the most important thing in my life, or one of the most important things. What do you expect for the midterms?
Oh, I think not solely, but primarily, or at least heavily, because of the issue we're discussing. I think the Republicans are absolutely going to have historic victories during the midterms. I mean, it's going to be COVID policy, it's going to be war, it's going to be immigration, and yes, it's going to be education as well. Find me a issue right now where Republicans won't be winning over Democrats.
I imagine a lot of 5-hour Fox and Friends weekends for Will Cain. 5-hour shows, because I know you love that.
All right, Will.
That was a one weekend. I think that was a one-weekend deal.
Two of
Brian.
three. It was two of the last three.
Job well done. All right, Will, thank you very much.
10 hours.
Rest your voice.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.